Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I just want to welcome everyone to the virtual exhibition in the exhibition kitchen, but we're obviously not here. I do want to start with saying welcome, everyone. I know it's exciting to have everyone back, and we're so excited to welcome Tara Teaspoon. She's going to be with us in just a hot second, but right before, I'm just going to go through a few things we do have on Friday, October 16th, which is today, the Live Life Deliciously. Please stay tuned also to the end because there might be a lucky winner or two for our lovely guest cookbook, Live Life Deliciously. So keep tuned, keep into that chat because we're going to bring some stuff to you. We also have Friday, November 20th, How to Be a Conscious Eater by Sophie Egan, and Monday, December 14th, the Berkshire's Farm Table Cookbook. Not to take any more time because I know we're all excited to see Tara. Just a quick little bio. Tara has spent more than 20 years in the food publishing industry, creating recipes and articles and food styling for various magazines, books, television, and advertising. Most recently, she has been the food and entertaining director of Ladies Home Journal magazine. Prior to the journal, Tara was a food editor at Martha Stewart Living, Kids, and Wedding magazines. She's appeared on the Martha Stewart television show, The Today Show, and as a judge and contestant on the Food Network. We are honored to have her here virtually, of course, to bring to life one of her favorite recipes from her book, Live Life Deliciously. So without further ado, we're going to throw the feed over to Tara, cooking from her very own kitchen. Thank you, Tara. Unmute her.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm far away from my computer, so glad you could do that. Thanks for having me. I am so thrilled to be here and show you one of my favorite recipes, as she said, out of my new book. And top of my head's mostly cut off because I want you to see the table, but you can see me, and just wanted to tell you a little bit about my book. I was so lucky to be able to create this and be published and share my recipes with the world. I have a food blog, tarateaspoon.com, and I get to share recipes and food and all that goodness online. But a book is just very special. It's sort of my collection of my very favorite things, my philosophy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go. But first things first, we are making chicken in paper, which in French, and I will not pronounce this correctly, it's called en papier, which means in paper. So I go with the straightforward title, and you can also make fish in paper, any tender, light meat, turkey cutlet, things like that that will cook quickly in steam and taste good. So cooking in paper is essentially steaming. And we have a close-up camera, so I know they will be switching back and forth. But one of the first things I want to do is show you how to create the packet of paper that the chicken and all the yummy ingredients will go into. So in a second, I will put the packets I already created in the oven. It only takes 15 minutes because, as many of you know, steam is hot and it cooks fast. And so when it's encapsulated in paper, it does wonders for a fast dinner. So I have my flat sheets of parchment, and what you want is parchment that's about 12 by 16 inches. So if you're pulling it off a roll, just measure 4 pieces that are about that size. The nice thing is if you buy pre-cut half sheet pan size parchment sheets, it's just the right size. Now we're going to get a little crafty here, and we're going to fold this in half. I like doing all 4 sheets at once so that I don't have to do it 4 separate times. So fold that in half. It will be the short way. And what we're going to do is make hearts. Now, yes, you could make chicken en papier with rectangular pieces of parchment, but the heart, I feel like it's a little bit tighter, a little bit more encapsulated, helps it cook a little bit more, but absolutely you could just leave it square. But to start this, I have a little pencil, and you may be able to do it freehand, but I'll show you how to do it with a pencil first. And you go back to elementary school and you just draw the shape of a heart with the fold in the center of the heart. And you can come from that corner down here and come up. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be that best tart you've ever made. But you want to use as much of the space as possible. So you can see I'm getting to the very edge on those edges. Then we simply start cutting it, and all 4 sheets are going to get cut all at once, which is lovely. And as happens when you cut lots of papers together, it's not exact. But guess what? That is okay, because when we're finished, we have 4 heart-shaped papers, which is so cool. Now, that tricky part is done. Was that tricky? It was really easy, right? Scraps go in the garbage, and then we will talk about chicken. So I'm going to set our paper aside. I love doing this first. And also, if you have double ovens in your kitchen, double this recipe. You can also cook 8. You can double it and cook it on 2 racks in your oven as well. But at 4 fits on a baking sheet so well. So that's what we're going to do. As I get my chicken out, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me. I spent so many years working as a food editor in magazines. And I started at Martha Stewart Living magazine and worked on her kids and weddings issues as well. And it was so fun to learn from just the absolute best in recipe development for at-home readers, as well as share recipes and work on the most beautiful, intense recipes you've ever seen in magazines with amazing editors. So that was my experience right out of college, which was really exciting. And I went on from there several years later to work at Ladies' Home Journal magazine, which I absolutely loved. It had a 135-year legacy, which I'll tell you about my sentimentality later. Okay, chicken breasts. I give you a weight, but certainly every package that you buy in the store isn't the exact weight that you need. So with chicken breasts, you buy them and they're so large. I call for 4 small chicken breasts. Now, if you're not buying organic or confined small chicken breasts, you're going to get the large ones like I typically do. And so what I do is I showed you here, I have a large chicken breast. Yeah, thank you. And if you cut it in half just the right way, you will get 2 smaller breasts that look like regular chicken breasts. So I like to just kind of cut it on a diagonal, just like that. And what we get are 2 pieces that really do look like the shape of a regular chicken breast. Now that end piece is going to be really thick. And what you can do is pound it. You can cut this whole large breast in half, like butterflying it, and pound it between 2 pieces of plastic wrap. Or I like just slicing it in half. So you want a piece of chicken for this recipe that is about 1/2 inch thick. And that's easy to get if your chicken breast is 1 inch thick. So that's what I've done here is I cut this, and now I have, you know, about a 3, almost 4 ounce piece of chicken that is going to be the perfect portion for 1 serving. So I had extra chicken breasts here today just to show you. One more time, I'm going to slice that in half, top to bottom, and get 2 pieces. So I suddenly have all the chicken that I need, and it's the proper weight. So I will set that aside for just a minute, and we will get to the chicken in a second. I'll put my chicken stuff off to the side. One thing I included in this book was recipes that you really could make on a busy night. Now that being said, I tried to put tips in and hints and things like that for novice cooks, as well as create recipes that experienced cooks would really love and enjoy, and it would be something new. So it's a great mix, and it was such a fun project to do. So this is one of those that once you make it once, you will realize how fast it is, and you will be making it on a weeknight, a busy weeknight, when, you know, it takes 30 minutes to get dinner on the table. So I have some flat leaf parsley here, and I like to just cut those tough stems off the bottom and leave the tender stems on the top. It really doesn't matter. They have a lot of flavor, instead of picking off every single leaf. Now, you can feel some of those thick stems. You can always pull those out. But I like to just wad my herbs up like this and give it a good chop. Now, in this recipe, I use herbs and dried spices to enhance the flavor and bring out, you know, just all these amazing aromatic tastes. And a lot of people ask, well, can I use dried parsley in this? I wouldn't recommend it. This is a recipe where I can already smell it. The amount of parsley that you're using is really a flavor that you want to stand out. So we are just chopping this finely. The other nice thing about this recipe is once you make it all the way through and you're familiar with the process, or if you've ever done in paper cooking before, you can use different flavors. You can use different vegetables. You can play around. So you might want to use dried herbs in something like a dried oregano if you're using roasted red peppers, and, you know, dried oregano, dried herbs, that sort of thing. So don't be afraid of experimenting. I want you to learn a technique and then make it your own. All right, we've got about 1/3 of a cup of, do I want this? Yes, I want this again. I'm just going to turn it over. 1/3 of a cup of parsley in here. If you have a little more, that's okay, a little less. I didn't measure today, but typically I do. And then we are going to mince some garlic. I have peeled garlic here already, and it calls for 1 clove. I'm going to use 2 small ones just because then it will equal 1 big one. Now, mincing garlic, you could absolutely use a garlic press, which I often do. But with 1 little clove, I can just easily chop, chop. In my cookbook, I have a section that talks about my favorite kitchen equipment and what kitchen tools and equipment I highly suggest people have. And sharp knives is one of those tools that I just think is imperative. If you have a couple of good sharp knives in your kitchen and keep them sharp, run them, you know, through a sharpener or with a steel, you will be the happiest cook ever. Many of you probably have already discovered that in your lives. So this minced garlic goes right into that parsley. And I'm going to pause and put my chicken in because it's going to be 15 minutes and then we can have a reveal. Okay, that's in, that's going. We'll start the timer. You won't imagine how fast this is. Okay, one of the other wonderful aromatic ingredients that I put in this dish that you almost sometimes don't know is there is lemon zest. So I use a fine rasp for my lemon zest, and I will just, let's get a little closer there. I just do about the zest of 1 lemon. And you'll find that's a little bit, often it's a little bit more than a teaspoon, depending on the size of your lemon. Oh, but you can already smell this. Think about this. We've got parsley, garlic, and lemon zest in small amounts, you know, only that 1 clove of garlic and then a bit of lemon zest. And it just makes this dish so bright and flavorful. And if you look at the recipe, you'll notice there's not even any fat in the entire recipe, no olive oil, no nothing. So these flavors really get to shine and bring out the flavor of the whole dish. All right, next thing is the delicious spices that I put in. And I'm going to check my recipe so I don't get it wrong. So I put in 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt to begin with. The rest of the salt will go on our carrots. Kosher salt I like to use. It's a little bit more mild in taste than other salts, especially like iodized. So I love having kosher salt in my kitchen for cooking. And if you're using sea salt, same thing. The crystals are a little bit bigger, so the measurements are going to be the same. You'll be golden if you want to use sea salt as well, which I love. Okay, red pepper flakes. Now, if you like a little bit of heat, these red pepper flakes are perfect. I only put in 1/4 teaspoon. That's definitely all you need. It just gives every few bites just a little pop of heat, which is so nice. But you can absolutely reduce that, or you can use cayenne if you have that. Just something to give a little warmth to this bright, herby dish. The sumac is another one. And I don't know if many of you cook with sumac, but it is one of my favorite spices. You can tell. Look, I've almost used the entire bottle. But it's from a berry, and it's processed and ground. And it's this gorgeous maroon colored spice. And it's a little bit lemony in flavor, a little bit, but it's more floral. It's so lovely. It's used a lot in Middle Eastern food. And then coriander. If you know me, you know coriander is one of my favorite spices. And that is because it's the same thing. It's very aromatic and it's mild. And so when you use it, especially in chicken dishes, I find, you don't necessarily taste it, but it just enhances the whole dish. So there are spices. I think I've got everything in there. I do. So no liquid. Again, we're not adding olive oil or anything. This is almost a dry herb rub. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to stir this together in the bowl. And you're going to want to take, you know, a good 30 seconds or so. And I just use the back of my spoon and sort of mash together all those ingredients. Because what you're now doing is you've got the oils from the lemon zest and the fresh, juicy garlic that's in there, and you want to really get all of those oils and that flavor over all of this. This is going to season the entire dish. And oh, if you could smell this, it's herby, it's got spices, but it's not overpowering. And the lemon, it's savory. It's so good. It's one of my favorite combinations. So that is getting set aside, and then we get to do our carrots. So when I cook chicken and paper, I often will put spinach or a hearty green, maybe bok choy, underneath the chicken because that will steam along with it, and you have these wonderful vegetables. This one, I wanted something colorful. I wanted something flavorful, maybe a little bit sweet to go with the savory. And so I thought, ooh, carrots would be great. But I didn't want chunky carrots. I didn't want big pieces of carrots. So I do one of my favorite tricks, and I use a Y peeler, but you could use any vegetable peeler. And I just make ribbons with my carrots. And again, this is, maybe it takes you 2 extra minutes to do this. If you've got friends coming over or you've got kids, this is just a kick. They'll love these carrot ribbons. And because they're so thin and beautiful, they cook really quickly in that steam. Now, you can use a regular vegetable peeler. You can see my little technique here because those carrots slip right out of your hands. So I just kind of do 1 strip at a time once I get into the center of that carrot. And you can really use thick or thin carrots, whatever you'd like. And these ribbons also look so amazing when you open that packet. Okay, as you get near the bottom, you won't be able to get every little bit of that carrot. That's why I call for 2. So you have enough. And the rest is for snacking. So I'll move on to my next carrot. Look how beautiful those are. Oh, I just love them. You know, the fun thing is if, right now especially, the farmers markets have all the different colors of carrots. So why not mix them? Why not get a purple carrot and a yellow carrot, white, all of those beautiful carrot colors, and mix them up. Oh, I love it. Okay, this is just for 4 servings, so it's plenty of carrot, and you will see why. Our chicken pieces aren't huge, and the carrots are just enough vegetables. So I'm going to put those in a bowl. Now what we're doing is we're getting all of these ingredients and these flavors ready because we're building the base of the flavor. Chicken breasts are chicken breasts, so you really want all that good stuff mixed in with them. And I'm not going to measure. We all know about what a tablespoon of honey is like. And if you aren't a by sight measure, it's great to do with savory foods. Not so much with baking. You really need that exact tablespoon or teaspoon. But kind of eyeball that tablespoon. And once you start cooking enough with these measurements, you know, okay, there's a teaspoon of olive oil, there's a tablespoon of honey or salt or whatever it is. So I really do like cooking that way once you get used to those measurements. And then I don't have to scrape the honey out of that tiny thing. All right, I have my little tongs here. I have honey, and we'll put the rest of the kosher salt goes on these carrots. And that is just 1/4 teaspoon. So I know what that is. And we'll just mix this in here. Now, if you're doing other vegetables and things, you could absolutely, say you have peppers and maybe some tender greens or bok choy, use the same technique and just season those, and then also have some extra seasoning. So like 1.5 tablespoons of this delicious mixture goes right on these carrots. And certainly I could just sprinkle the seasoning over the whole top of the packet, but I really found that mixing some of it with the carrots imparted it into the dish much better. Easy, easy. We are really just about ready to assemble, which I love this part. Let me clear this. And I saw some, I'm happy to answer questions in the middle. Are there any questions I can answer while I clear my table?
So far, all we've had is that we loved the carrots shaved. They're beautiful.
Perfect. Glad it wasn't a question. Glad you liked it.
So now that we've asked, we had another question come in. Is that parchment paper?
Is that parchment paper?
Yes, that was the question.
Yes, and I would thank you for asking that question. I'm going to tell you about that. So parchment paper, you may know, comes in brown and white. And I used both today. So yes, it's parchment paper. And a little bit about parchment paper. When you buy it, it should say whether it's silicone coated or non-coated. I think a lot of times they'll all say natural. So this would say natural, and this one is silicone coated. It's just the tiniest little bit of silicone that helps make it non-stick. I would venture to say most of the parchment paper you buy has a coating on it, which is fine. It's food safe and fine for us to eat. It doesn't leach into our food. But if you prefer, you can buy parchment that's non-coated and it's just paper. Okay.
So what did you add to the carrots?
Oh, I'll tell you. So the carrots have 1 tablespoon of honey and about 1.5 tablespoons of this delicious parsley mixture and a little bit of salt. So it's already starting to get a little juicy and delicious, bringing out the juices of the carrots. And that's just waiting to go on our parchment sheets.
How much of the sumac and coriander went into the spice blend?
Oh, good question. So coriander was 1/4 teaspoon and sumac is 1 teaspoon. Red pepper flakes was 1/4 teaspoon. And then into the parsley mixture, I put 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt.
And we don't want to give away too many of Tara's secrets, so if you want the full recipe, we will be raffling off 8 books at the end of the event.
So excited, you guys. And then you'll have to tell me what you are cooking. I will be so excited to find out. Okay, I have my baking sheet here, but you can always pull your baking sheet out later. And let's see, let's go to the close-up. Until I get some of these folded, I'll just set them aside. So I have my heart opened up, and I'm going to start building on one side of it. Then this side is going to be folded over, and I'll show you the technique of sealing that packet. So we can eyeball it. 1/4 of the carrots go on each packet because we're making 4. So let's get 1/4 of the carrots on there. They're so beautiful and curly. And 1 of our chicken breasts. Let's do this one. And the chicken breast, you can use your fingers, you can use your spoon, but the chicken breast gets a little of this herb mixture as well. And then golden raisins, you want to put about a tablespoon of golden raisins and a tablespoon of toasted pine nuts or pignoles. And then, oh, one thing I forgot, which I will just slice right here, is a lemon. So we already have lemon zest in the mixture, but for looks and flavor, I like to put a little slice of lemon right on top. You can put 1 or 2 slices, it doesn't matter. Let's just put a couple of slices. So you can see that in the close-up. Let me get a little closer to you. Now what I'm going to do, bring that over. I like to start at the short end, right here, not the point. And I'm just going to start folding that over in 1-inch increments, 1 to 1/2 inch. And we're just sort of pleating that. Let's see, can you see it? You want to just pleat that all the way around. I'll move my hands so you can see that a little bit better. Now, if you were making a square packet, same thing. You would roll those edges or pleat them just like I'm doing. And surprisingly, I like to get it, you know, nice and tightly pleated. But surprisingly, this is all it needs to keep that steam in. So once you get to the end here, it starts to sort of get twisted and you can just fold it under. So let me do that a couple of more times so you can see the process. So I have my heart. I'm going to start building on one side. Put my carrots down. Now, of course, you could put your carrots on top of the chicken. It doesn't matter. But my background is in food styling. So I like to make things look beautiful. So I think about the look of things as I go. I put our chicken in, get some of this delicious spice on. And I forgot last time to put more on, but I will this time. Okay, so doesn't matter the order. We've got our lemons. These are all our toppings. Our golden raisins. Now, oh my goodness, don't we all love a little savory sweet? So the raisins are that sweet with the sweet carrots, and so great. All right, let's take this out. I'm going to show you. Don't want it to overcook. Oh, those packets are puffy, and I can tell there's steam in there. They've sort of browned a little bit on the edges because it was high heat. It's about 400. We're just going to let those sit for a couple of minutes. Oh, and then I'm so excited to break into them. Okay, gathering all my ingredients up, back to our little close-up. Fold that packet over and start pleating from that short inside. There we go. I'll move up a little bit. And this doesn't need to look perfect. Like I showed you, it just puffs up in the oven. And that's the goal. And everybody gets their own little packet of food. Okay, so cute. That one's done. Let's do another one. I'm just going to buzz through the last two so you can see how simple it is. So if anyone has any questions, ask away while we're finishing up the last few. otherwise, I will tell you a little bit about food styling. So I did not know what food styling was when I was studying culinary arts in school. And I told my chefs and professors that I wanted to make the food in the magazines. Who made the food that I see in magazines? And nobody really knew. I was at a school where I was learning to be a restaurant chef. And finally, one of my professors came to me and said, "Oh, I think you're talking about food stylists." And it was an article about food styling. Now, granted, this was over 20 years ago, so not to date myself, but, and they said, "Well, I think this is what food stylists are." And it was an article about using Crisco for ice cream and what else? Glue for milk and things like that, which absolutely, come to find out, absolutely use Elmer's glue for milk in advertising shots. And I have done that. And Crisco for ice cream, absolutely. But I just knew that wasn't what I was seeing in the beautiful food magazines. And so I sort of found my path into natural food styling, which is what most editorial magazines use. And I love it. I loved learning how to make food beautiful for photography. And it gave me a sense of how to cook in the kitchen. So it has been a really fun career making my recipes beautiful.
Can you suggest another option for the raisins?
Oh, yes. Good question. I mean, so many options. I think any dried fruit, you could use apricots, cranberries, raisins, currants. That will still impart the sweetness. So if they're big pieces of fruit, chop it up. You could also leave them off if you don't like dried fruit at all. But please experiment. Currants are a delicious alternative. This would be really delicious with currants and some Kalamata olives in there. So don't be afraid of playing around.
Does it matter which side of the parchment you use, like shiny versus non-shiny?
No, so the shininess will just be the process of how it was made. The silicone doesn't necessarily give it a shine or not, but really any parchment paper will do because it's such finely milled paper and so it will hold the steam in and it won't soak through all the juices. It will still hold and be intact.
How does the unpopular cooking differ from steaming on the stove with a lid?
Because they're small packets, it encapsulates all that flavor. So you're not losing flavor in a whole pan or a whole dish. Now, if you were to do one single serving in a pan on the stove and steam it, sure. But you really would be simmering it, right? Because in order to get steam, unless you have it up on a rack, I love this because the carrots are touching the chicken, are touching the herbs, are blah, blah, blah. So yes, it's still high heat cooking, but this just encapsulates it into one place and holds the flavor in there. That being said, somebody asked about shiny parchment. You can also use aluminum foil. It's the same thing as an aluminum foil packet dinner, but this one is just so much more refined, I would say, right? So let's see that.
Can you prep the packets ahead of time if you're entertaining?
I would, that's a great question. I would prep all the ingredients, but the parchment paper is still paper, and so it will get a little soggy. I wouldn't prep them too far ahead. Give yourself, 10, 15 minutes to assemble them, but even for this demonstration, I had all of those ingredients already. You can also shave all the carrots, get all your vegetables ready, and just have to assemble. So I would say do that ahead and not necessarily packet them up ahead. Let's see, I'm needing to get a plate. That's what I want. I want to show you guys this finished product. It's going to be so amazing. Okay. I will use a spatula, I think, and just keep them back here. And we'll get one of those packets. Now this is fun. Everybody loves getting their own little packet. And as the host, you can go around and just give a little clip to the top of that parchment. And everyone can open their own, or you can open it for them. I love just tearing that open and revealing that delicious meal. Here, I'll show you in the camera. Can you see that? I love it. It's so pretty. You guys, if you could only smell this, it's so fun. And you can certainly eat it right out of the paper, or I like to just slide it onto the plate. Now, one of the things is you think, okay, chicken, it's going to be, you know, it's steamed. Is it going to be rubbery? Did I overcook it? Again, with the small packet and not a lot of air circulating, the chicken is incredibly juicy. So let me show you. I'll cut into this. Everyone that bites into this is just like, oh, that chicken. It's so soft, so tender. And the carrots, you can tell, are just really just soft, melt in your mouth. And I wish you guys were here to taste it.
We did get a yum. Can't wait to try it. Looks delish.
Good. So it's really great. Just those little bits of flavor. Ham. It's just so aromatic, so flavorful. I get a little hint of heat. It's absolutely delicious. So you can tell, I mean, that did not take us long. And we have a beautiful little dinner. Think about all of the variations you can make with this technique. I love it. I love showing people how to do it. It's a favorite. And remember, you can do it with fish. So same thing, 3 to 4 ounce pieces of your fish. Great. I don't really love meat steamed like this, so I don't use steak or pork or anything. But I like chicken and fish. Delicious. And you can also adjust these and do vegetarian only packets as well.
What are some suggestions you have for a side or starch?
Oh, good question. Depends on what you put in it, right? If you're putting some bok choy and spinach, maybe some rice on the side. This would be great with roasted or boiled potatoes, even mashed potatoes with maybe some garlic in there to play off the garlic in the dish. Personally, it kind of has everything I want in it. I would probably maybe add a fresh green mixed salad and some crusty bread with this, and use that bread as the starch. So that's my suggestions. Also a whole grain, if you're cooking maybe some farro or quinoa, those are all great. And depending on what flavors you put in there, choose a grain to use.
Awesome. Tara, thank you again so much for bringing us through this entire recipe. And we're just so excited to have you. If we could, we'd have a round of applause so you'd be able to hear it. But yay!
Thank you so much. And oh, there you go. I see stuff.
Thank you.